Hello everyone, this is Alberto Ferro, your host at Where is the Music podcast. As you're getting ready for a new musical investigation, preparing your ears and imagination for another journey in the world of music, I would like to remind you that Where is the Music podcast has no sponsor. It relies entirely on donations from listeners like yourself. You can find a link to my website, albertoferro.com, and to my Patreon account in the episode description. If you like what I do and would like me to continue doing it, I encourage you to become a supporter of the podcast, which publishes an episode every week. Thank you for listening, and now let's find out where is the music. Welcome everyone. What's in a melody? This is one of those questions that first look seem interesting, only until you realize that the idea of a melody containing stuff is somewhat preposterous. What's in a melody is one of those questions we probably could react in the same ways we react to some of those children questions, or maybe paradoxes. Paradoxes that offer us an opportunity to reflect and ponder about things we are used to know in one way, and then thanks to them we might start looking at the same thing from a completely different angle. Before I continue, just a quick note to say that my course on counterpoint is available. You will find the link in the description. If you're a pianist or a student and want to learn the fundamentals of harmony and how to make music improvising with them, this is a good way to do it. So there is also a coupon code for 30% discount. The coupon is piano for fun, so 30% discount for a course in counterpoint fundamentals. The link is in the description. But let's continue with our topic today. Throughout this podcast, I have often referred to melody as a musical element on its own, something we can point our attention to, separated from the rest of the music. I am assuming this because melody has a feature, some qualities. There are things that define what melodies are, and we are going to describe them in detail. Before doing that, though, it is worth noting that very often the very thing we believe to be the music, the one aspect of a piece that for us carries the whole point of a musical work, is indeed its melody. If we whistle or hum a tune while killing time, we don't have doubts that our whistling is referring to that particular piece of music only. This is just to say that for a lot of music, the melody is its main feature, the signature, the emotional, the intellectual, or even spiritual core. Perhaps its identity. This was Ruby, My Dear by Thelonious Monk. Such a simple but interesting melody. So, what is a melody made of practically? Firstly, it is a sequence of single notes or pitches, as opposed to chords or polyphony. For this reason, melodies are usually singable, and since they are singable, melodies usually come with words or lyrics. The vast majority of melodies remembered by people has lyrics, and so we already see how, by virtue of relying on a sequence of single notes, and therefore allowing to be sung, melodies enter from a side door into the world of literary works of poetry and storytelling. How many songs are just poems in music? What do we call a melody with words, distinguished from a melody without? We usually refer to a tune when notes are combined with lyrics, and stick to the term melody when it's only music. So we are technically correct by referring to the melody of a tune, meaning the musical characteristics of a song with lyrics. However, the distinction between music that has lyrics versus music that doesn't is not so definite. For example, sometimes music carries the meaning of the lyrics beyond the song, meaning after the song is finished. And composers rely heavily on this principle, this quality. What do I mean? Say you are a composer and you have to set in music a libretto, a story that is given to you by a writer, a librettist. Your task is to set the music in a way that enhances, underlines, and expresses in the best possible way the emotional content of the story. What the audience hears are lyrics well combined with music. That's great. And if you are a good composer, the combination of music and words will be so good that listeners won't really be able to hear one without the other anymore. In a way, a good musician finds the perfect match for the words at hand, so that neither will be able to recall the lyrics without its melody, nor will recall the melody without its lyrics. Melody and lyrics grow together in perfect balance, intertwined, but I think even more than that, perhaps they grow into an integrated whole. It became common practice in the classical music tradition to open an opera with an instrumental overture, a sinfonia, where the composer would put together all the main themes of the opera in a standalone instrumental piece. This will give the composer a chance to introduce the tunes, melodies only, before the story even starts, allowing the audience to familiarize themselves with the emotional content they are about to engage with. Later on, when those tunes are sung at some point throughout the opera, the audience would recognize, perhaps mostly unconsciously, the emotional relevance of the moment simply by responding to a melody they have heard in the opening overture. This is what I meant earlier when I said that sometimes music carries the meanings of the lyrics beyond the song. This is just one example among the many we can point to when attempting to describe the relationship between a melody and its lyrics. For example, movies have learned a long time ago how to exploit these emotional connections. The melodies written for film, by virtue of their emotional characteristics, and because they can be heard in correspondence with the entrance of the protagonist or a side character, or the approaching of a long-awaited event, have the purpose of wave our attention into the course of the events. They can lock us in the story, they can lock us emotionally in the story. Composers for film, as well as sound engineers, have become incredible at this. The term that defines a melody when is explicitly attached to a character, a place, an event, or even an emotion in theater and cinema is leitmotiv. What's a leitmotiv? While motif is a technical term that defines a melody in terms of its construction, its notes and intervals, articulation and rhythm, leitmotiv is a particular kind of motif that accompanies an important element of the story. Almost a theme that comes back every time the element reappears in the scene, whether a character, an inanimate object, or a place. The typical example is Star Wars. In the movie, every character has a dedicated leitmotiv. There is a theme for Luke, for the Death Star, for the Princess Leia, for the Force, and so on. In theater, opera, or cinema, as the story plays out, a battle between good and evil, or a struggle for love, or what have you, if each character has their own theme, we intuitively associate those musical themes with good, evil, love, and so forth. As a result, those characters exist on an ulterior dimension, a metaphysical one perhaps, added by music, and those themes as well start having their own individual presence and relevance in the story. They introduce events and characters we don't see. Think of the theme of Jaws. Right? You don't need to see the shark to know it's there. And when they are really effective, a leitmotiv grows its significance even outside the story. It emerges and separates itself from the movie or the opera, and eventually enters everyday lives. Think of, for example, the underlying significance if you were to pick a piece of music with the intent to celebrate someone, a friend or a family member. Think of how different it would be, the effect and the overall message, if you were to play this or this. The effect obviously will be entirely different. Your intention will be completely different. The people around you will have a reaction, and they will automatically infer or understand what is your opinion or maybe even your relationship with the person that you're trying to celebrate, right? So it's not just that music has a way to communicate what we feel or what we think, but it's also that music associates itself with all these other dimension, all these other layer of meaning that we have attached to before. In the case of Star Wars, whether the theme is associated to a good character or a bad character, a threatening character, or right? It's so interesting. So a mythological saga such as Star Wars becomes relevant because it is built on powerful archetypes. And what better than music is there to bring those archetypes out from the specificity of the movie into the broader, more relevant metaphysical dimension where they can keep reenacting the battles of the story. If certain stories are relevant or eternal, it is, in the end, thanks to the music we attach to them. Take this other one. How many underlying subtle meaning and messages are underneath these melodies? There are no lyrics, nevertheless, there is so much attached to it, so much we can associate them with. So far, we talked about melodies that are just musical, melodies linked to tunes, melodies that become leitmotifs in relationship to a story being told. I briefly discussed the term motif as a more technical perspective on melodies, and I also briefly touched upon the word theme. Melodies can become themes, of course, in accordance to the composer's purposes. While I'd love to dive in this huge topic, it will take us a long way from our original trajectory, and I will refer then to one of my previous episodes called What is a Theme, where I discussed the subject at length. While melodies are sung with human voices, they are also played by instruments. Guess what is one of the most common instructions given by teachers to music students? Make your instrument sing. Interestingly, we rarely hear the opposite, that a singer should try singing like a piano or a trumpet. Just by this simple example, we can infer how among the reasons why we enjoy listening to instrumental music is that instruments map and imitate the human voice. When instruments imitate the human voice well, they are capable of adding a whole new dimension of meaning to the pure sound of their notes. Instruments can in fact transcend the human voice. Their pitch and dynamic range is usually larger than the voice. They are more orderly, meaning instruments can hold the note steadily with minimum effort. They don't need musical memory, meaning we can play the same note on different days and be sure it's the same note. Most people can't sing the same note within a few minutes apart, and I am one of them. Instruments can render a multitude of voices at once, like the piano or the guitar. Some don't depend on breathing, and those who do, like the clarinet or the saxophone, don't ever incur in the risk of triggering hostility or disagreement with the listener, which, as we know, happens so often with human voices. For the same reason that when we perform an emotionally charged speech, we might accent certain words or syllables, or we might reach a high peak, or we might speak very fast and rhythmically with assertive tones and long pauses, then a melody written in the exact same manner would possibly come to be interpreted as emotionally charged, assertive and personal music. In contrast, when we speak softly, slowly, perhaps in a private conversation with our close friends, we might be sharing something personal, important. In the same way, a melody, by virtue of being slow and soft, might be hinting at private, personal, confidential emotions. It is the job of a musician, in the end, I think, to develop this vocabulary, which essentially is a link between the human and the acoustic, leading to find humanity expressed in sound, and perhaps music expressed in the human voice. What we do, for example, on a musical score is to explore the humanity encrypted in the music notation. We ought to do this job fundamentally by a process of trial and error, because notation just presents a vast range of purely practical instruction. There's nothing poetic in a music score. The music academia in Europe and elsewhere tends to focus its attention on the classical canon for many reasons, among which the idea that if one needs to be trained on developing such vocabulary, a vocabulary that links the human with the acoustic, One should start with clear-cut musical ideas or human emotions. In the same way, one wishing to learn how to draw will start practicing with some still image or steady subject, also some solid form or neat shape. Classical music offers an immense repertoire of music that, while most is complex instrumentally, its human content is neatly defined. In the early Baroque, in fact, we see the emergence of the theory of affects, which is an attempt to collect and categorize emotions and affections so that each will have its best musical correspondent. This is at once a result of the deep interest in human potential we call humanism and the humanist tradition, in line with the rationalist trajectory that led later towards the Enlightenment. A collection and categorizations of emotions to be associated with musical themes, chords, or even tonalities might suggest something like a musical encyclopedia. Therefore, a classical sonata movement by Mozart or Haydn would have as its main instruction allegro, happy, joyfully, inducing the performer not only to aim at inspiring this affection in the listener, but to feel it itself, to feel it themselves as they play. The German composer and music theorist Johann Mattheson writes about it. He writes in one of his treatises, and quote, "Since, for example, joy is an expansion of our soul, thus it follows reasonably and naturally that I could best express this effect by large and expanded intervals." And end of quote. He says that large and expanded intervals express at best the expansion of the soul, which is what he defines as joy. So large and expanded intervals. An example could be this. This is Mozart. Notice there is such a vast range achieved in just the very first few melodic notes. This is more than an octave. If you were to sing it, you will actually reach from a mid-range in your voice to a very high range. And in order to do that, you have to very much expand your lungs. There is a point, right? There is a sense of opening up and probably a positive and joyfully opening up. And then another quote from the same treatise. Matheson says, quote, "Whereas if one knows that sadness is a contraction of these subtle parts of your body, then it is easy to see that the small and smallest intervals are the most suitable for this passion." End of quote. So he says that the small and smallest intervals, like this half step or the whole step, are easily associated with contractions of, he called it the subtle parts of our body, possibly is referring to the spirit, the soul. And this contraction is what he defines as sadness. And so, like half steps, right? These very small intervals could be that the little half a step seems to be in perfect line with what he says. Small intervals can be associated and express sadness. As listeners, then we have the opportunity to infer, possibly project our own humanity in the melodies we hear. And as an artist, I would say this is what music is for. There are things about our shared humanity that we can't put in words, and that is the music's role. So I'm going now to touch on a few melodies and give some words that might suggest further, hopefully richer interpretation of the music. Let's start with another very sad melody. This is from the movie Schindler's List. This melody is so particular. There are so many large intervals. Let's hear it. That's already 3 large intervals. 2 large intervals. It would be very hard to sing. This is a how many skips is like a slow vortex. It does make me think of a labyrinth. It seems to just slowly wander in all directions without peace. So interesting. It's one might associate all this labyrinthic, slow journey to the sorrows of the Jewish population. Its origins seems to be lost in oblivion. It's very hard to find yourself steady in this music, steady. Arriving somewhere steady, it's all very unsettled. Labyrinth to me is the term that best can associate with this melody. Labyrinthic sorrows. Another one that I thought we could look at is from Ravel. So that's a very peculiar melody as well. You could hear it emerging out, like surfacing the very rich piano accompaniment. This is Ondine from Gaspar de la Nuit. The pianist is Ivo Pogorelic, and the going back to the melody, these delicate soft notes are seems to be part of the ocean of notes, the waves of notes that seem to be vibrating underneath. They have the main stage, and out of this little musical noise it comes out this very soft and delicate melody. In a sense, the simplest association one can make is with a siren singing from the depth of the oceans. That's probably what Ravel had in mind. And but the pace, the pauses, such a non-driving start, like a pause. Right? It seems to be a slow lament rather than an actual communication, a communication of feelings, and it makes me think of a call from the very depth of the ocean, which symbolically are, of course, our unconscious. I can easily see here Ulysses, traveling and hearing this beautiful, seductive, but nevertheless very dangerous call. Gonna continue with another melody. The choice is infinite. I probably feel a little bit melancholic these days, so 3 choices I now realize that they are all on the melancholic side. This is the windmills of your mind. There is a clear, strong sense of a circulating, cycling melody in an obsessive manner, but it's not. There is no. Once again, there is no driving trajectory forward in this. It's more of a your own train of thought just comes back to the beginning, and every time you don't make any progress forward, you don't progress, you don't achieve anything, you just come back to the same thoughts. That's why there is something a bit obsessive about it, hypnotic and obsessive. Just a repetition, you can hear how it repeats, but not. There is a slow descending trajectory. We kind of see already this. This is not going anywhere. In a sense, we can think of. I don't know the lyrics of this tune, but I suspect that the windmills of your mind refer to this circulating to the circular thinking, some sort of almost schizophrenic way of just hearing and thinking all the same things without development. It's interesting that this is similar to the melody before from Schindler's List. There is a labyrinthic nature in here too, but there is a sense of urgency, at least, that there wasn't in before. Probably, certainly, is given by the pace. Is more moving, is more fluent in this song, "Windmills of Your Mind" by Michel Legrand, which wasn't in the previous one. But also, there is a sense, there is a more regular shape, let's say, a more regular design and organization of the phrases, as if the person who is having all these hypnotic, obsessive thoughts is very used to it. There seems to be a sense of at once urgency and familiarity with it. Okay, as a final example, on the thread of labyrinthic melodies, how about this one? This is also labyrinthic. There are these huge leaps and huge jumps. It's quite difficult to sing. And then in the bridge, so it's the same technique for writing, meaning a lot of big jumps and unexpected turns, but there is something so warm and loving about this melody. It's like someone at every step of the story, at every step of the melody, is like seems to be more open and more warm and more expressive. Then next step, and next one. Slowly closes back again. It's a very friendly, loving trajectory. It's interesting how the pace, the order, and the rhythm of it does change completely the atmosphere and probably the expressive purposes of a melody too. It's hard to see a melody like this not set on love, on lyrics that have to do with love. This is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, music by Jerome Kern, and I think I think I better stop, otherwise I'm gonna go through the entire repertoire of melodies that I know, and we will finish in the fall, I guess. So thank you for being with me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you like what I do, please feel free to like, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment. That is always very helpful. And also, if you want to support, of course, you can do so by becoming a member on Patreon. So thank you again for being with me, and see you next time. Just a quick note to say that my course on counterpoint is active and available. If you are a pianist or student and want to dig deeper into why chords sound the way they do, this course is for you. This will help you improvising your own music using the most fundamental relationships in harmony. Counterpoint sounds theoretical, intellectual, and difficult, but it's not the case. I developed an approach to counterpoint that is practical, fun, interactive, and aims at developing your improvisational skills from the ground up. It is designed for beginner or intermediate piano players. It is called Counterpoint Fundamentals. It's on udemy.com, and with the coupon code PIANO4FUN you get 30% discount. If you're curious about counterpoint but not sure what it is or why it matters in music, go ahead and watch the first 2 classes, which are for free. The link is in the description. Coupon code is PIANO4FUN, no space, no dash, PIANO4FUN, okay? I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening to Where is the Music podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, look up for others. I made a few. I publish an episode every week roughly, investigating each time a different aspect of music, the music making, the music listening, the meaning of music, and its relevance in our lives. It is very helpful for me if you like, subscribe, follow on your favorite platform. Where is the Music is on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TuneIn, and Google Podcasts. If you like to support me, you're free to do so through Patreon. Link in description. Thank you again. Until next time.